Hey you guys, it's Rachel here with Senza Tempo Cane Corso, and I've got some really good news today. They're the cuties, the cuties, those are babies, they're the baby. Yes, I know you're such a cutie, you're such a cutie. So, I got our pen hip results back for the dogs, and I wanted to go over them with you guys. So, long story short, Blondie has been approved for breeding. She does have a loose hip, but there is no hip dysplasia. And as much as we want to kind of blame loose hips on hip dysplasia, unfortunately, it's really not that. It's not that simple. And I'll be honest with you, I actually thought it was. Previously, I really thought it was. I thought I had figured it out and that's what it was. Now, am I going to say that that I like Blondie's movement? No, I'm not. But she's not dysplastic. We do know that. There's nothing technically wrong with her. So nothing that would disqualify her from breeding. And hey, quit! Don't chew on my couch. And there are other positive attributes that she has that makes her worth breeding. For example, or not necessarily like, I don't mean like worth breeding, but I mean are that she has positive traits. For example, her temperament is going to be, I'm going to be, targeting her puppies towards first-time Corso owners. Her feet are tight, so this breed in particular, they're supposed to have what's called cat-like feet. Please disregard the fact that I have not cut her nails. I cut Preachers, I cut Midnights, I cut Liberties. Cashmere's are already done. I have not done Blondies yet. But you see how tight Preacher's feet are? And these feet are not really tight. She has kind of, they're not bad, but they're not very tight. Midnight's feet could be better as well. She's kind of got big old club feet like her mama. And Blondie has the cat-like feet. As you can see, they almost look small. And that's actually what you're looking for in the breed. So anyway, but I'm going to go over the results with you guys so that you can better understand. Because I was still hesitant about breeding her, and I had a couple other breeders that were just kind of like, you're really overthinking this, The whole point is to avoid hip dysplasia. There's actually a lot of people that even think that, breeding for the tightest hips on everything could also be counterproductive. If something's too tight, then that could also be a problem. So I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns in regards to hip testing, but the one thing we don't want to breed is dysplasia. We do not want to breed dysplastic dogs with hip dysplasia. There are still people that will do that. I'm not going to do it, but there were no signs of hip dysplasia on Blondie. And as many of you know, I don't give her, I break all the rules. I have slick floors. My old house had slick floors. I do things to try to break it up, but I have them. My old house was a 2-story house, and they would go up and down the stairs. And then, of course, you guys see them run around like crazy. She has had, she has just went hard on that hip, right? Just very hard on that hip. And there's no signs of hip dysplasia. There's no wear and tear on the hip. So I was speaking with a couple other breeders about it, and one of them sent me her dogs. She had bought a female for breeding purposes. She wasn't even 2 years old yet, so she was still a puppy. And that dog had been kept at a really great weight, just like my dogs. And she also has been kept, like, they held her upstairs. They did everything right with her. She didn't get lots of, she got exercise, but she wasn't, it's just all the things that you're supposed to do with this breed to keep their hips safe was done with that dog. And yet, before even 2 years old, she had hip dysplasia. So, and keep in mind, her hips were tighter than Blondie's, and she had hip dysplasia and had been raised in the safest, best environment possible, the best foods, raw, all of it. And she still had hip dysplasia. There's another female that I got their pen hip result back on, not one of my dogs, but a dog that I'm very familiar with. She's, I think, 4 or 5 years old. And she also has hips that put her in the same range as Blondie, which is called moderate. It's at moderate risk, which is honestly just, it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't mean they're going to get it. This is a 5-year-old dog that doesn't have hip dysplasia that's been around like this dog has. They're just not going to. So, anyway, so it goes to show that laxity is a part of it, but it's not the whole thing, and that there are other contributing factors. Now, let's go over their results. First off, I'm going to show you the dog that got hip dysplasia at a young age. So, we'll look here. What was her index? So, one index was, let's see here, 0.50. And you can see here, no radiographic evidence of OA, which is whatever, it's hip dysplasia. I don't know why they call it OA. They didn't used to call it that. They used to call it DJD, which was degenerative joint disease, but whatever. The other one is 0.53. Now what's crazy too is these are really close. A lot of dogs, there's a lot more variation between one hip and the other, and yet hers are very close. And yet here we have confirmed hip dysplasia. The index is greater than 30 with evidence of mild or moderate hip dysplasia. So, and it put her in the 70th percentile, meaning that her hips were better than 70% of the breed, right? And she still had hip dysplasia, all right? That dog was retired. It was not, she was never bred, and anyway, so there you go. So this is the other dog that is around either 4 or 5 years old. I'd have to look here and see. She's 51 months, 104 pounds. It's a good size for a female. 0.52, 0.46. Let's see here. No cavitation, no radiographic evidence of OA on either hip, okay? And she is at moderate risk of hip dysplasia, not high risk, moderate risk. And she doesn't have it. I don't think she will. She lives on a ranch, I believe. She's got free roam. She's never been kept like protected or anything. You know what I mean? Like it's not like she's led a sheltered life. Hey! No. That's enough. Blondie, you heard what I said. That's enough. All right. So this dog here, no hip dysplasia, 4 to 5 months old. Hips. What did I say? What did I say? Behave. Quit. Quit it. No, don't. Quit. All right. Blondie, you better do as you're told. I'm going to get you, girl. You better be quiet. Better quit it. Tell you what, she's a butt. All right. So anyway, no hip dysplasia here. 4 or 5 month, 5-year-old female. I don't know what 51 months is, but there you go. All right. This is velocity. Index.
Don't do that.
0.35, 0.29. In my opinion, these are great hips. She's at mild risk of hip dysplasia. Let's see here. No radiographic evidence of OA for either hip. Okay? Mild risk. They don't give us a score anymore. They used to give us a score like this one where they show you that you're in the 70th percentile range. Now they don't do that anymore. I don't know why. But nonetheless, these are good hips, right? No OA and tight hips. Which we think is a good thing. Hopefully. All right, so this is Midnight. Midnight has really good hips too, 0.31, 0.36. No radiographic evidence of OA on either hip. And she's also at mild risk. Okay? All right, Blondie. Here we go. 0.36, 0.68. There's that loose hip, okay? Now you would expect that with a loose hip like that there would be something going on, and yet there's not. As you can see down here, no radiographic evidence of OA for either hip. Now, that means something to me because Blondie has never had any type of special treatment. She's never been protected in the way that most people protect their dog's hips, and yet she doesn't have hip dysplasia, versus the other female with tighter hips that does have hip dysplasia here, okay? So after speaking with no less than 4 breeders about it, they've all told me that I should just breed her. She doesn't have hip dysplasia. That we're trying to avoid hip dysplasia. It's not like we're all trying to produce the tightest hips in the world here. We're just trying to avoid hip dysplasia. That's the idea. So until we know 100% about hip dysplasia, we're not going to know whether or not it has to do with the the hip laxity, or if it is a combination of things, which I'm starting to think it's a combination of things. Maybe it's a loose hip and a hip that isn't formed right, things like that. They also told me that the x-ray that we got on Blondie was very bad, that it probably made her hip look a lot worse than what it was. And even having said that, there still was no evidence of hip dysplasia. So there's really no point in removing a dog from your program that doesn't have an illness that you're trying to prevent. You know what I mean? It's like, we tested her, she came up negative, so, there's no point in not breeding her. Having said that, we are going to make sure to, reevaluate her as time goes on, and to ensure that there are no changes in that hip. So if indeed, we end up doing a x-ray and later on down the road, a couple years down the road, and we see that there have been some changes, then we'll retire her and we'll know better. But, unfortunately, there's no way for us to know that right now. I personally don't think it's going to be a problem. I've had some breeders that have been doing this for a long time tell me that they've had dogs with hips just like hers that never ever broke down, never ever had a problem, and didn't produce dogs that were dysplastic. Because like I said, we saw another dog in there with tighter hips that had hip dysplasia. So clearly it isn't just about how tight the hips are. So we do think she has a lot to offer in temperament. She's a really sweet, loving girl. And I genuinely think that she would be a great dog for basically like your starter Corso. So that's what we're going to do. And then going forward, we'll just make sure we will make sure that we require pen hip scores on any of the males that we breed her to, and that we know for sure that the hip health on those dogs is good, and just to cover our end, just to be safe on both sides. We're not breeding a dysplastic female here like many people would do. She has no hip dysplasia, but she does have a looser hip than I think any breeder would necessarily desire. But I'm really glad to see that even with her going hard, I mean, you guys have seen her. She runs hard trying to keep up with Midnight, and she has not damaged that hip at all. There's nothing wrong with it. So I can't fault her and remove her from my program whenever there are people that have dogs that have had a way safer, cushier life that have hip dysplasia, that even have tighter hips. So clearly it isn't just about hip laxity. So having said that, we're very excited about it. I honestly was fine just not breeding her, really didn't care. Like I said, she was always my daughter's pet and it never really mattered to me. But it was nice to see that it's not something to worry about, and that it is an issue that is much more complicated than we originally thought, and that we really need to just keep monitoring and seeing how it is. And if you're a breeder, or maybe you're not a breeder, please let me know what your pen hip scores are. You can block out your breeder's name, your registration, all that kind of stuff, but I really want to know more about this, especially if you have your radiographs. If you've got a dog with hip dysplasia, please send those in, let me know. I really want to learn as much about this as I can, because I was shocked to see a dog with tighter hips and less laxity between the two. That's something you look for, right? You want less spacing between them. So like I think Midnight had only 5 index between her hips, and I think what's her name, Velocity only had maybe 6. So that's something they tell you to look for, but anyway, but I am very interested in it. So if anybody has that, please just feel free to send it to my email. Block out any personal information that doesn't matter to me. The only thing that matters to me are the scores and the results. Anyway, hope you guys are having a good day, and I'll talk at you later. Bye.